Senator Goldwater, we have another question here from some of our listeners. You voted against the Civil Rights Act in 1964. Would you do so today, and what is your position now on the proposed Voting Rights Act?
Well, to answer the first part of your question, if the same two items remain in the bill that caused me to think it unconstitutional at that time remained in any bill today, I would have to vote against it.
From the 1940s through the mid-1960s, conservatism as we know it today was not well represented in the government. Republican Party nominees for president tended to be more centrist than right-winged. As a result of this, Barry Goldwater's nomination was a significant step for conservatives to understand that someone with a truly right-based mindset could have the chance to win a presidential election. Although Goldwater lost in a landslide of an election, his very presence at the time speaks to the growing support for someone of his ideology. Goldwater firmly believed in the preservation of fundamentals of the Constitution, as demonstrated in the preceding interview. Despite this, Goldwater's lack of transparency in his social views was detrimental in his progress towards presidency. Regardless of this shortcoming, he was still able to garner support. That support grew for years until the next significant event in the rise for conservatism.
I, Ronald Reagan, do solemnly swear
that I will faithfully execute the office of President of the United States.
that I will faithfully execute the office of President of the United States
And will, to the best of my ability,
and will, to the best of my ability,
preserve, protect, and defend
preserve, protect, and defend
the Constitution of the United States.
the Constitution of the United States.
So help you God.
So help me God.
Ronald Reagan, like Goldwater, faced many obstacles while attempting to be nominated as a presidential candidate. Despite this, his experience as governor of California and his pre-politics fame as an actor aided him in winning the nomination for the Republican Party. Reagan then campaigned against Jimmy Carter and won the presidency. This led to a Reagan presidency that changed the face of conservatism forever in American politics. Reagan's policies and ideals were catalysts in the trend of Reaganism, a term coined to describe his ways. Reaganism occupies a space in the political spectrum that is right-leaning, though not entirely so. Because of this, Reagan received significant criticism from those whose ideologies aligned further right than his. Despite this, some of Reagan's ideas appealed to those on the right. For example, his trickle-down system for wealth distribution shows his conservative foundation at work. Reagan believed that allowing the wealthy to accumulate funds with less taxation would allow for them to create more work opportunities for the poor. Along with this, Reagan provided less direct government support for the poor and maintained that the wealthy should have a right to remain wealthy. As time has progressed, the meaning of Reaganism has shifted to adhere to today's politicians who claim to wish to emulate his style. Since his presidency, some candidates who wish to recreate the prosperity that occurred under Reagan model their ideological plans after his. Through this, Reagan's legacy has contributed to the rise and persistence of conservatism in America in recent years. Through Reagan, however, Barry Goldwater's effect on American politics has proved to be gigantic. Over time, large shifts in American trends like socioeconomic stability and the alteration in the South from solidly Democratic to solidly Republican have occurred, further cementing the conservative perspective in mainstream politics. Because of this, one could argue that the goal of the conservative movement was achieved. This goal, however, has not necessarily proven to be beneficial to all. Many argued that the trickle-down method of economy does very little to help the poor. This, along with some other economic factors, have spearheaded the belief that conservatives do not wish to help the poor and only work in the best interests of large corporations. This perspective has been a setback for the conservative movement, though one that is occasionally held true. Today, the moves made by past conservatives like Goldwater and Reagan remain influential to society. These, along with new developments in conservative ideologies, have served to shape part of America's political landscape. In our most recent election, the American soft spot for classic Reagan-like conservatism mixed with modern views on relevant topics proved to be widespread enough to elect a conservative president. Had the movement not existed, it would be safe to say that conservatism would never have taken the shape it eventually did. Additionally, the rise of conservatism in American politics stretches past the reach of just the executive branch, but to the entirety of the government. With a majority right holistic government today, one can expect that more often than not, legislation will take a conservative side. As demonstrated by the evident effects of the past on today's governmental system, the rise of conservatism clearly played an enormous role in providing a voice for those who favor a smaller government. Through the actions of past leaders, today's conservatives can work in favor of a right-wing system, allowing voices from all parts of the political spectrum to be heard.